evening and welcome to the Comlink meeting. We're going to begin our meeting in about 45 seconds. Welcome to the Comlink meeting. We will begin our meeting in about 45 seconds to allow attendees that are in the waiting room to join in. So just give us just a minute or so as we welcome in our attendees, and then we can kick off our meeting. At this point, we have approximately 21 attendees. We're just waiting for others to join in. Once again, thank you and welcome to the Comlink meeting for the month of July. We will begin our meeting shortly. While we're on this pause, we have a poll that we would like to share with participants. And so we're going to open this first poll. And so you'll have a little bit of time to answer this question. Okay, we're going to give it just a short time more for responses on this one. And so it looks like 2/3 of our participants say that this is their first virtual Comlink meeting, which is excellent. So thank you. Thank you very much for that response. I'm going to close that poll. And then we've got one other poll that we'll do real quick. We're asking, how are you participating in tonight's Comlink meeting? And there are 4 choices: desktop computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone. And again, we're collecting responses. For those of you who've just joined us, this is the July meeting of the Santa Ana Communication Linkages Forum, and we're going to be kicking off our agenda shortly. We're starting with a quick poll to better understand how residents are participating in tonight's meeting. So we're collecting responses and we'll close the poll shortly. And so it looks like 3/4 of you are using desktop computers and 25% are using smartphones. So I'm going to close that poll. And at this point, we're ready to kick off the Comlink meeting. Hi, my name is Scott Kuttner, and welcome to the July 2020 meeting of the Santa Ana Communication Linkages Forum, Comlink. Comlink represents Santa Ana's neighborhoods and meets each month to discuss public policy matters of citywide significance. Our meeting tonight is being hosted by staff of Santa Ana Neighborhood Initiatives. And so special thanks to Margarita Macedonio, Alyssa Ventura, and Narcy Perez for all of their assistance. We also want to remind you that your thoughts and your questions are very, very important to us, very, very important to the board of Comlink as we move forward with these meetings. And so we encourage you to use the question box and type your questions in during the meeting so that we're able to have a record of your questions. And to the greatest extent possible, we're able to answer your questions during the meeting. In the chance that we're not able to answer your questions during the meeting, we will follow up with you afterwards to get responses to your questions. So thank you. I also wanted to share that our Comlink meeting includes a separate Spanish language call-in line so that interpreting of our meeting can be provided to Spanish speakers. We encourage Spanish speakers to also ask questions through this line so they can fully participate.
Why is Scott doing all this?
And they do that by dialing *9 to raise their hand.
Thank you for tuning in. We're so glad to have you. We're glad we can communicate this way. No, it's all. See, they've taken over Congress, but they're doing it because that Peter's so damn stupid.
At this time, I'd like to recognize the board of ComLink, which is led by President Peter Katz, Vice President Carl Benninger, Secretary Evangeline Goronsky, and board members Leon Jacobs, Irma Macias, George Collins, and Terry McCall. Peter Katz will now lead us in the flag salute and introduce our first presenter, Santa Ana City Manager Kristine Ridge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight, I have the great honor to introduce the Honorable City Manager Kristine Ridge, who will be updating us tonight on the COVID-19 as it affects the city of Santa Ana, and this is the #1 issue in the city today. And so, Kristine, welcome aboard.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you to your fellow board members. It's a delight to be here with you tonight, although I agree with Lisa. I do miss people and I miss seeing your faces, but I guess this is the new reality for us. So what I'm going to do is provide a presentation on, and you said it right, Peter, this is the most pressing issue facing us at the moment, COVID-19. Never did I imagine we'd be facing a pandemic, which has caused a great demand for city assistance to address a health crisis at the same time that our resources are declining. As a municipality, we don't have a health officer. I have no medical training. This is not my field of expertise. So it's been a difficult and a very steep learning curve as we've shifted gears to venture into this area and try to figure out how we can get the resources out to those that are in the most need within our community. We certainly have had to alter the way that we carry out our services drastically in light of everything that's happening. And we have also been fighting very hard to get funding so that we can provide more assistance. What I want to talk about tonight is the magnitude of the virus, and particularly the disparate impact it's having on our community, how we have responded to date, and then most importantly, how we plan to deploy the needed federal dollars that we are anticipating receipt of, keeping fingers crossed, in the very near future. So I'm sure most of you are already aware of the healthcare agency's website. It reports information on a daily basis, and it provides you information on the number of cases, that's the positive test cases in our county, and then it breaks it down further by cities and zip codes, and it talks about hospitalizations, it talks about testing rates, and it talks about the unfortunate deaths that have occurred in our community. But I want to take a step back and talk a little bit more about other information in our community that is unfortunately contributing to the rapid growth of COVID-19. Our per capita income sits at $19,500, and almost 20% of our community live at or below poverty level. We are a very highly dense city, and we have a large number of essential frontline workers that live in our community. More and more information is coming forward that supports that this very type of community is being hit the hardest by this virus, which unfortunately is talking about our community. So if you look at the number of cases, the total positive cases in the United States is now it has surpassed, well, it's almost surpassing the 4 million mark. And with our state, we represent a little over 10% of the entire United States cases. At the county level, our count is second only to LA County, and it continues to grow daily. Our county is one that's on a watch list, and as a result, we've been under additional restrictions by the governor's office, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And in Santa Ana, we have exceeded 6,000 cases. We do have the highest case count in the county, followed by Anaheim. The majority of the other cities within Orange County have less than 1,000 cases. Looking at our city, the majority of the cases are located in just 4 zip codes. Those zip codes are 92701, 92703, 92704, and 92707. They make up the majority of our positive test cases. So it certainly is the area that we are going to focus all of our immediate efforts on. So far, you're probably wondering, well, what has the city done to respond to this so far? So starting back in March, your city took very swift action, often in advance of a lot of your neighboring jurisdictions, to try to assist in addressing this pandemic. So following the governor's order where he declared a state of emergency, our city turned around and declared a local emergency. By making that declaration, it did a number of things. One of the most important things is it did make us eligible to apply for additional funding. It also granted special powers to me as the Director of Emergency Services. What it gave me is the ability to issue executive orders. It also gave me the ability to enter into contracts as needed ahead of council approval, which later I would take back and reaffirm. And also at this time, the city, of course, dealing with the pandemic, we're an employer, so we were also subject to complying with the governor's stay in order. And at your municipal level, we did have to send initially about 600 employees out of the workforce because the services that they provided were not determined to be essential. So under the power as the Director of Emergency Services, I have issued 10 executive orders, one just being issued today, but I want to walk you through all of them and the rationale behind them. So the very first one that I issued, it was to prevent an increase and exasperating a problem and further adding to the spread of COVID. It's to preserve our public health, not make people homeless on our streets, and it was a moratorium on evictions and suspension. In addition, we also suspended any water shutoffs for public health reasons. The second executive order attempted to address the negative impacts for city services because we were at a limited staffing level. We had closed City Hall, and we were still trying to keep up as many services as we could. This executive order, it just provided additional relief for late fees, certain deadlines on administrative hearings or permits to assist those both in the community and in our business sector. It also implemented a rent increase freeze so that the individuals in our community wouldn't be hit on top of job loss, additional healthcare expenses, and increase in their rent, all in the name of trying to preserve those that were in a house to stay in a house to not further exacerbate issues within our city. Next, on April 15th, I did an executive order number 3. And this one I did because we were not seeing this edict come down and the county had yet to do anything on it. So we did issue an executive order that required face coverings for essential workers. So this is if you went into the grocery store, the clerk helping you, if you were at the gas station, the attendant, if you were at any other type of a business, the employee that was serving you was required under my executive order to wear a mask. What it did do, though, it didn't require, but it strongly encouraged the businesses to monitor their customers as they came into their location and to have them wear masks. I did it this way just because it would have been impossible for the city of Santa Ana to enforce that, while it would be very easy for whether it's a grocery store or a neighborhood market to not allow people into their business unless they were wearing a mask. We also strongly encourage the grocery stores to set aside dedicated hours, mainly for our elder population, just because they were considered early on and vulnerable under the pandemic. And then on May 28th, I did an executive order number 4. And this one was really just an extension of that very first order, which was stopping any evictions from happening within our city for both residential and commercial tenants. Next on the 28th, I issued Executive Order 5, and this was to really help out Okay, I think I might have got muted, but can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So on May 28th, I issued an Executive Order 5, and this was really to help our local businesses. These were businesses that had to cut down their capacity of serving clients. And so what we did is we did an order that permitted certain types of businesses to expand out onto our sidewalks, to expand out into the parking lots. And you might have read articles about this. You know, Laguna Beach closed off a street, Fullerton closed off a street, and it was all about providing additional space for businesses so that they could meet all of the social distancing requirements and the capacity requirements that were placed on them. And on June 30th, once again, I extended the eviction moratorium. And then just today, I've extended that further. So the eviction moratorium, it's granted by a governor's executive order where they put in protection for local jurisdictions to impede in this type of a process and to put an eviction on. And then in addition to that, tenants are also protected not only by the governor's order and our order. The California Judicial Council issued a rule, and that rule pretty much prohibits the courts from processing summons that are necessary to carry out evictions unless there's a cause for a public health or a safety issue. So all of those procedures are still in place, whether I have my order in effect or not, but it's just one more added layer of protection. So those were the executive orders. In addition to that, what we are doing behind the scenes and our ongoing activities is we are pushing out all relative information on COVID-19. We have changed the way that we've done operations. We've moved to appointment-based. We've moved to app setting. We have a permit counter where you can score an appointment, text us when you're in the parking lot. We have outfitted City Hall to maintain social distancing, to protect the employees, but also to protect the customers that still need to carry out the business. We have a very robust website. So if you haven't seen it, Scott can give you the direct link. It's our regular website, santa-ana.org. I think it's /COVID. There's a wealth of information out there on these executive orders, on assistance programs that we have in place, and on what city operations are still fully working. We also, since the very start of this pandemic, we've activated our Emergency Operations Center. This is a center that's housed within our police department, and it is staffed by a team of employees, and they're constantly searching out, gathering data. They're also helping to coordinate a lot of the activities that we've been doing, such as facilitating distribution of masks, distribution of food, and other critical events that have been taking place in the city. In addition to that, we have been in constant communication, both myself and your mayor, with key stakeholders in the area. The mayor participates weekly on a call that has a representative from the governor's office, that has other large cities' mayors. And it was really through that call that I credit him with demanding that our city receive a share of the federal dollars, which were not forthcoming to the city. They were distributed to much larger cities. In addition to his briefings with the mayors of the large cities, which is referred to as the Big 13, he started a coalition of all 34 cities in Orange County, and he meets weekly, virtually, of course, practicing social distancing, with all 33 other mayors, where it's COVID-19 24/7. What are they doing? What are best practices? What issues are they having? I personally have also have weekly calls with the County of Orange. And as you know, the County of Orange is the county that provides the healthcare related services for our county. And they also have the medical officer, which issues the edicts and the announcements and restrictions for our county. So we're in contact constantly with those. And then, of course, we have been aggressively seeking reimbursement. As you can imagine, on a city that's a municipality that we're not medical professionals, we're about parks and streets and curbs and gutters and those types of amenities. To deal with the pandemic, it's been difficult, but it's also been very, very expensive. So as we've shifted normal government revenue to cover expenses of this, we have been working very hard to seek full reimbursement so that it doesn't impact the normal services that we provide. Under the declaration of emergency, We, of course, have access for FEMA reimbursement. They don't do a 100% reimbursement, and that's why we've been working hard to secure other types of funding. So next, what is the current state of California? What's open, what's not? So you guys probably all know this, but it's all about mask. Mask, mask, mask. Our mayor, if any of you had an opportunity to see, he was on Good Morning America this morning. It played at noon. I think it was going to play again at 4. You can view it on YouTube. And he was asked, how to deal with this pandemic and what is the city doing. He had a limited amount of time, but he definitely got the message across that everybody needs to wear their mask. And that actually is the law right now in the state of California under the governor's order. So basically, all Californians are supposed to wear masks the second they leave their house, unless they're engaging in something or going somewhere where they can maintain the social distancing of the 6 feet. And then more recently, the governor did restrict back some openings of businesses that had been open before. He did this in select counties, and I'll talk a little bit later as to why we were one of those select counties. But businesses that had been open have now been scaled back and only allowed to open outdoors or pickup or delivery methods. There also is a requirement that public schools, when they open up within a short period of time, that they're only in distant learning only. And then malls, museums, zoos, movie theaters, entertainment venues, wineries, bars, card rooms, where we thought they were going to be opening soon, they are indefinitely delayed. I'm not sure when we'll see the opening of those. It's really to try to stop the transmission, which happens to occur pretty easily at large gatherings. So the reason we have some more restrictions in other counties is because the state is continuing to monitor, and the state has identified 5 criteria that they're using to monitor counties. And we currently, the county, not the city, the county as a whole, is failing at 2 of those criteria measurements. So the 2 that we're failing at is cases per 1,000. The goal is to be below 25, and we're currently at 211 per 1,000. The positive test rate, the goal is to be under 8%, and at the county, we're at 12.9%. The other 3 criteria we are meeting at the state's guidelines, and those consist of a 3-day average increase in hospitalization. They want the goal to be under 10%, and we are only at 1.3%. They want to make sure that we maintain at least 20% of our ICU beds available, and we have 32% available in our county. And then maintaining at least 25% of ventilators available, and we are currently maintaining 63% availability. So as those numbers improve on the 2 areas that we're failing, we might see some of the restrictions listed or lifted off of us. The very last thing that I want to talk to you about is through a lot of lobbying efforts, we were able to get a direct allocation of the Federal CARES Act money. This is money that the legislation adopted quite a while ago, but they distribute it to larger cities and counties. And so this is really our first opportunity at a distribution of this money. That's good and bad news. The good news is it's 28.6 million. The bad news is that we have a very limited time period to spend it. So with the assistance of your elected officials, brainstorming of staff, based on input from the community and those that are on the front lines of providing healthcare services, we've identified several different buckets where we want to program this money. We have an interdepartmental task force that's working extremely hard behind the scenes so that we get the contracts in place, we line up the providers that are needed, we get the materials and the personal protective equipment all in hand. So the second that I receive the dollars, we can really hit the street quickly. Unfortunately, we're not going to get a full allocation of the 28.6. It's going to be doled out in 1/6 at a time, which makes it even a little bit harder. And we only have until the end of this calendar year to spend it. But to just briefly go through where we're planning on spending it, one of the first areas is we want to engage UCI, and this is their public health center. I've been working very closely with their dean of public health because we want to know, as a community that's already at a high risk to have the propensity for a large number of cases, we want to do some modeling and we want to do serology testing so that we can figure out, where we're at, what has the exposure been, what could the potential exposure been, and hopefully predict where the next hotbed would be so that we can deploy the resources in that area. Second is sanitization of high-risk areas. Everybody knows that there is disinfectant products that will kill the pathogens within COVID-19, and it's something that we want to make sure that we're doing in the community. So whether it's our bus shelters or our crosswalk buttons or high traffic areas, we're in the process of securing a company contract with a chemical company so that we can routinely do disinfection of those areas. Another area, the next three actually have to do with providing more assistance. We have provided in the past already rental assistance and business incentive grants, but we want to use this money to do more of that same thing. So we want to roll out more robust rental assistance and business relief, including to nonprofit and artist organizations. And then we also want to provide utility bill assistance for those that have fallen behind in their bills, whether it's electric or water or gas. And then high-risk resident testing. As you learned, we have some zip codes that have higher than normal activity, and we want to deploy mobile resources and start getting the testing known so that people can determine if they're positive. If they are, we can engage in the contact tracing, and we could also provide isolation services. So whether it's the person that's positive that can't go back home to a family of 4, or if it's the family that wants to be isolated because maybe there's 2 or 3 family members that are already positive, we want to use those resources for that. And again, very important, education and outreach. Although I believe our PIO has done a fabulous job at social media channels using our government channel 3. We need to go back to more of a grassroots effort and get boots on the ground with mobile resources deployed and flyers, maybe door hangers, just so that we can help educate people on this virus, how it spreads, and the precautions that you can take. We do want to deploy, I don't know if this is the appropriate name, but for now we're calling them compliance ambassadors. We want to help not only educate the residents, but with the businesses. We don't want to be heavy-handed enforcement, but we do want to go in and make sure that the businesses are following all of the state guidelines. In their best interest, we want them to stay open, and they are going to have to meet those guidelines. And then lastly, just the reimbursement, as I mentioned before, a lot of the resources that have been spent on other things for our community have been diverted to deal with COVID-19, and we want to seek every dollar that we can for reimbursement of those expenses. I probably went over my time. I think you slotted me till 7:25, but that is the end of the presentation. If we have time for me to answer any questions, I'd be more than happy to do so. Or if, Scott, you want to gather them, and I will certainly follow up with answers. I will leave it up to the board to make that decision given the time. Thank you.
Kristine, thank you so much. We really appreciate the presentation. I know that our Comlink board members do have a few questions for you. And before I pass it over to them, I wanted to remind everybody that a copy of the city manager's presentation is available for you to download on the handouts tab on the meeting. And so that's something that is available to you right away. And with that, I want to turn it over to Peter Katz and the Comlink board for perhaps a few questions for the city manager.
I just first want to thank. Go ahead, Peter.
George, go ahead. George?
Yes, I have 3 questions here that were written in by Bill Taramina, I believe I pronounced it. He appears to be a restaurateur, and he's stating that he's very clear to bankruptcy and wants to know if you have an idea of when the restaurants will be allowed to reopen, or some forte or status on that for him. Thank you.
Okay, certainly. So right now, under the order, the restaurants can still be open, but they have to be open outdoors only. So there has been studies done that have shown that the virus is transmitted easily in closed, confined areas. So that's why the governor did make the restriction that they can open outside. So when you drive downtown, you might see those restaurants outside on the sidewalks or maybe in the parking lots. So certainly if there is any restaurateurs that need assistance from the city on how to expand outdoors, we stand ready to help them. And we have actually prepared a guideline on businesses on how to reopen outdoors and what they can do.
Carl, you have a question?
First of all, I want to thank Kristine and her staff for the good job that you're doing during this pandemic time. It's really appreciative to see the city moving in the right direction. My question is, I noticed at Saddleback High School that they're doing testing in the parking lot. In 30 seconds, how does one go about arranging for a test and who pays for the test?
Okay, so right now through the Orange County Healthcare Agency, throughout the county, there are 24 testing agencies or testing vendors, I guess, set up to do testing for all the residents of Orange County. If you wanted to set one up, which the city will be doing with the funding that we're expected to receive, it's about locating an individual that has a vendor that provides the testing, making sure that the testing is FDA approved and that they actually have the capacity to do the number of tests and that they have the lab. So one of the problems that the county is experiencing as a whole is there are PCR tests, which is a swab up the nose. A lot of the test kits are available, but those require a lab to process them, and the labs are backlogged. So one of the things we're doing is we're trying to research alternative tests, potentially instant read antibodies test. But with the CARES money that we're receiving, you will see a lot more mobile testing happening in our city specifically for our residents. So I hope that answered your question, Carl.
Kristine, I just want you to just re-emphasize how serious this is within the city. Just this morning, Chalk Hospital announced that they have 613 children with COVID-19 in the hospital right now. So this is affecting every age within the community. And we have groups of people that think they can go out and party just because they're young.
You're absolutely right, Peter. One of the things that they thought really early on was that elderly were the most vulnerable for it, and that is turning out not to be true. They're finding out a lot more information. They are finding out that young children can contract the virus, and that the most vulnerable are those that do have underlying conditions. One common factor that is being reported in a lot of the scientific journals are obesity is a very makes you very vulnerable to it. A high BMI, diabetes, if you have any type of an immune deficiency. And the fastest cases right now are growing in the young invincible age population, and that's probably like the 18-year-olds to the 30-year-olds. So I know that is one of the drivers behind the bar closures that the state issued. But you're right, it can affect the young to the old, and they're still learning a lot more about it and what it does to the body. And unfortunately, the way that they're learning about it is through the autopsies of the patients that have passed as a result of the virus.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kristine. We really appreciate your presentation on this topic. For those of you who've asked questions and we weren't able to respond to them, we've captured all of those questions, and we will be able to respond back to you, and we'll be in conversations with the Comlink board regarding the areas of interest associated with this initial presentation. So again, thank you very much, Kristine, for your excellent presentation tonight. And a reminder to all of our participants that a copy of the presentation is available in the handout section of the virtual platform that we're offering tonight. With that, I would like to have Carl Benninger now introduce our second presenter tonight at tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Scott. We're going to have general planning virtual meetings on July 31st and August 1st, and Melanie McCann will be talking about how to do this and how to participate. And this is an excellent way to get your opinion in about the growth of the city. Melanie?
Thank you, Carl. Let's see if I can just get my screen up here. Can you confirm that the flyer is up?
I do see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Again, my name is Melanie McCann. I'm with the city's planning division and part of the team that's working on the general plan update. The flyer that you see on the screen shares the 2 dates that are coming up. One being Friday, July 31st from 6 until 8 p.m. and the second on a Saturday, August 1st from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And of course, because of the COVID, it is a virtual meeting. And what the point of the workshop is to actually highlight the major land use and policy changes that are proposed in the general plan update, and actually to help more easily navigate when the draft general plan document is actually released in mid-April. So just to walk through here, again, it's to highlight the proposed changes to the city policies, things such as health and wellness, and environmental justice, and land use alternatives. And it's very easy to, as you can see here, just click on the link that's on the flyer, and you just need to pre-register for one of the events. So with that, we appreciate the time to be able to share this with folks. Some might have seen this flyer, others may have gotten an email. And again, we're wanting to just pave the way for future conversations when the general plan draft document is actually out in mid-August. Thanks very much. And also, just to highlight as well, that you can find a handout on the city website, the general plan update. If you can search for that. And it's also a handout on this particular presentation, as Scott has mentioned earlier. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you very much, Melanie. We really appreciate it. We don't have actually time on the agenda tonight to take questions and answers associated with the general plan, but to the extent that you do have questions, please use the question box and we'll see that our city planners receive your questions and you receive a response to your questions as well. And with that, I would like to reintroduce Comlink's Carl Benninger, who will now introduce our Santa Ana Unified School District Liaison, Lisa Solomon.
Okay, thank you very much. We've been very fortunate in Comlink to have Lisa Solomon as our liaison from the school board. And she's also principal at Madison Elementary School. And as you know, there's been a lot of talk about how the school is going to open up, when is it going to open up, and what platform they're going to follow. So Lisa, can I turn it over to you and give us the latest, please?
Hey, Lisa, you may be muted, so you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, now it's unmuted. Thank you. Hi, everybody. This is Lisa Solomon, the principal at Madison Elementary School. I'm also the representative here at Comlink for Santa Ana Unified School District. It's so nice that we have so many people with us here today. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what we've been planning for the reopening of the schools, what we had planned for, and then with some of the same information that Ms. Ridge shared with you, we've had to change some of our plans. We've had to shift and pivot. And as a school district, we're prepared for whatever may come our way. And we've been preparing for distance learning as well as for if we do get to reopen the schools. And I'm just going to go through that really quickly with you. Over the summer, we've been planning and preparing. Early in the summer, we involved a lot of different stakeholders, everyone from health services to the superintendent, experts in the fields, as we say, to help prepare the plan for how we would reopen our schools safely for our students. Throughout the summer, we've been working to get our schools tip-top shape, make sure that they're clean, getting pieces in place that will ensure the safety of our staff, our students, and our families. And we're going to keep working through this whole summer. We worked pretty much the entire summer, making sure that we're training our teachers and our staff that we have here on health and safety protocols, as well as best instructional practices. And we're going to be training our families and our students for whichever way we go back to school so we can be best prepared. We've also, this team that came together, they came to identify some critical areas of need and to make a plan and provide recommendations, so then each school could develop their own plan. And as you can see, there was lots of different people involved: administrators, teachers unions, teachers, community relations, our nurses, our mental health services department, our student support services, parent support services. Everyone came together to plan, make recommendations on how we can best design our reopening plan. They identified 6 target areas, which I'm going to go into a little bit more. And we also got lots of input from the parents. We collected surveys early in the summer, and we collected over 11,000 surveys. We also collected surveys from students about what was the best way to learn online, activities that they liked, information that was important to help us developing our plan. And also we did staff surveys for staff who participated in the summer, and also questionnaires were sent out to staff, as well as doing what's called empathy interviews, listening to parents, finding out, listening to community, what their concerns were and what we could do best in planning for reopening the school year. We had a timeline that we had set. We've had to adjust and shift a little bit. Right now, all of our schools were where the green arrow is, and we're finishing up our school plans in which we've involved parents and teachers from each site to see how we can best be prepared for the day that we do open, and best be prepared for starting the school year in full distance learning mode. These are the 6 target areas that we ended up looking at. CDC recommendations, also we made sure those were kind of our guide as we're going through everything, as well as whatever the state has determined for us. And then our school board, of course, made those key decisions for as we move forward. We're looking at flexible and innovative design so we can best meet students' needs and provide programs that are going to be to have different components and different options for parents. We looked at how we could reimagine student learning, making sure our kids are motivated and engaged while they're online, that we're still providing the supports that we need for wellness, that everyone is held accountable from teachers to students, that we built in an accountability system, but at the same time built in training and support for all of our stakeholders, families, community, so everyone knows what protocols and procedures we're going to be following for safety. And also we wanted to make sure that we kept everybody engaged and we're communicating with everybody what's going on in our schools. What's guided our decisions? Well, as you know, California and what's happening in the state of California with how we identify the stages, and also looking at how Orange County is on the monitor list, as was explained earlier. That's kind of been driving our decisions. Is it safe enough for us to open for our students and for our staff and for our community? We've also been monitoring closely the zip codes in the different areas to see what support we need to provide through the schools. That's guided our decisions. So we went in, of course, focused on health, safety, and well-being of our students, making sure we're meeting the needs of our students and families, providing great learning experience, and making sure that we're clearly communicating to everyone what steps we're taking and what's going on, especially since information is always changing. Of course, as you know, it's really important that health and safety and well-being, and this, whether we are in stage 1 or stage 2 in distance learning mode, yes, they're staying at home, but when they come to pick up materials, we're still asking everyone to make sure they're adhering to social distancing, that students or families who come to pick up materials are wearing face coverings. We're encouraging frequent hand washing, and everything that the CDC is encouraging, we're promoting through social media and through our websites to make sure we're helping our community to stay informed as well, knowing that Santa Ana is a high-risk area. So when we started, we have the traditional way of teaching, which you see on the screen over here. And we also had full distance learning, which is what happened when we closed the schools in March. We had to shift to full distance learning mode. We were planning on hopefully opening up the school year in what's called the hybrid model, where students would come to school certain days of the week, like in elementary, maybe 2 days a week. In secondary, it would be 1 day a week, but they'd still be connecting with their teachers each and every day, and they'd have hopefully meaningful learning experiences also being provided through the hybrid model. That's how we were planning on opening on our scheduled date, which was supposed to be August 10th. And then when the state guidance came down about the monitor list and how our county was high risk, and that's when we had to shift, knowing that we're going to be opening all of our schools in full distance learning model. But knowing that even if we shift into hybrid model, our parents are still going to have the option to stay in a virtual learning mode, full distance learning mode. We want to make sure that our parents have options and choices based on the needs of their own kids and how they feel comfortable with either having their kids attend school, or if they feel like they'd be more comfortable with them being at home. We're hoping that one day, once all restrictions are lifted, we will go back to our traditional 5 days a week. And when you see the arrow, it's kind of like a pendulum swinging that things happen in the state, things happen in Santa Ana. We make the decisions that are best for our Santa Ana kids, for our Santa Ana families, and for our entire Santa Ana community. The learning models, just so you can see, the parents are going to be taking a survey. Even though we're going to be opening in full distance learning mode, we still want to make sure that we know what parents want. So when we are able to open our doors, we're going to be able to hopefully transition and shift or pivot, as they say, into hybrid model, knowing which parents would like to have their kids attending school. So we're going to have parents choose one for when we do open. And we're taking a lot of safety precautions right now. We're preparing rooms, making sure we have signage posted. Signage is being printed through our print shop, and we're setting up desks and tables so they're 6 feet apart. I know everyone's looking at the picture and they're saying, but Miss Solomon, those two students are right next to each other. We have student A and student B, and they would be attending they'd be attending different days coming to school. Student A would be coming on Monday and Tuesday. Student B would be coming on Thursday and Friday. All kids would be connecting with their teachers every day. And when you see the seats, student A right here, and then there's a student A in this other area where I've put the arrow. So you can see that the kids are separated 6 feet apart. We're making sure that we have enough masks. Our district has already ordered and received masks, hand sanitizers, and any PPE for when we do begin to open the schools. We will be prepared. We want to ensure that there's high quality learning, no matter what mode we're in, that teachers are building strong relationships with students, that we're looking at how students are progressing and where they're at, and going from that and providing scaffolds and interventions for the students. Even when we're online, providing small group instruction to best meet students' needs, and making sure that we're training everyone along the way, students, parents, and staff, on what distance learning is, how to have access to materials and supplies, and the importance of their participation. Everyone is going to have expectations and be held accountable. This is the survey that I talked about, so people in your community may be asking about it. Every school has their own survey, so every school sent it out to the parents and requested that they request a program. It's really important that where it says other considerations, that they let us know how we can best meet their needs. If they decide I want hybrid model for when we do open up later on, that they let us know, oh, the cousins live in the same house, we'd like for them all to be in the same cohort. Or my child has asthma, there's special considerations that we'd like you to look at. So then we can take those safety and precautionary measures and meet the needs of our families. As we're going into distance learning mode, a typo, I need to fix that. We want to make sure that we have, that everybody knows that teachers will have certain expectations, students are going to have certain expectations. We're building in accountability systems for all staff members for the work that needs to get done to make sure that our kids are learning. We're going to be providing learning kits that students will be able to pick up at the school sites. We're going to have lots of technology support, and even right now, if there is families that need technology support, You can call in by appointments, call the district office, and we have Chromebook exchange Thursdays where students, if their Chromebook breaks, they're able to exchange it for a new one. We're going to continue to hand out Chromebooks and hotspots. More Chromebooks have been purchased for our incoming students and to replace any ones that are broken, and we're buying more hotspots. We want to make sure that our kids have access, and we've also been working with the city to see what we can do about providing Wi-Fi. We're going to provide professional development and training. We're going to keep communicating and connecting with our families. And part of our distance learning and our online curriculum is going to include social emotional learning. We want to make sure that we're checking in with our kids, not just how they're doing academically, but also how they're doing emotionally. We want to make sure that we continue to offer the supports we've been offering, including grab and go meals, all the community resources, mental health resources, support that we could provide virtually or by phone, and food resources, and continue having our virtual meetings with families and making sure that we're communicating, especially through all sorts of social media. We've been using everything to contact our parents, everything short of me standing outside of the school screaming out whatever information we have. We've been using our marquees, all types of social media. We have a new system called Parent Square where we're able to send out information and alerts to parents immediately via text, phone calls, and email. We've been sending out mail. We've been putting up signage. Everybody, of course, we've included in here information so you know how to connect with Santa Ana Unified through Twitter, YouTube. Our superintendent's been putting out videos. An important message you can help us with is making sure that your neighbors and friends who do have kids in Santa Ana, if you can just remind them to call the school and make sure that we have accurate information such as phone numbers, addresses, and emails, because we do want to make sure our families are getting all the information that they need, especially as things are shifting. We are going to be opening up in full distance learning mode for everyone in the entire district, but we are going to be putting lots of supports in place to make sure we're connecting with each one of our families. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, Lisa, this is Scott, and I wanted to thank you very much for your presentation, which was very thorough. I wanted to remind everyone that copies of Lisa's presentation are available on the handout section for this virtual meeting platform. Before I pass it over to Terry McCall and George Collins to review any questions that have come in, I'd like to check with Margarita or Narcy to see whether we've received any questions through the Spanish language line. And so I just opened Narcy's mic and Margarita's mic. So if we have any questions, you guys, please let us know. Okay, my understanding is we haven't received any questions through the Spanish language line, and so I'm now going to pass it over to George Collins and Terry McCall to see whether they've received any questions that have come in through their channels. George, Terry? George, we're having difficulty with your audio for some reason. It sounds kind of like a digital format for some reason.
We haven't received any questions yet.
Okay, we haven't received any online questions. Okay, very good. Lisa, once we receive any questions through that dialog box, we'll be sure to consult with you and we'll inform the Comlink board so that you guys can have a discussion about people's areas of interest associated with this very, very significant transition to reinstituting the whole formal education process in Santa Ana and in the state of California during these really challenging times. To the extent that there aren't any questions, what I'd like to do is have Comlink's Carl Benninger introduce the Orange County Fire Authority Administrative Captain Steve Horner. But before he does that, we would like George Collins to share some drone footage that he shot on the 4th of July to sort of give each of us sort of a sense of sort of what it looked like in Santa Ana at 390 feet. And so we're going to start with that, and then we'll pass it over to Carl to introduce Orange County Fire Authority Administrative Captain Steve Horner. And George, we're going to open your mic to see whether maybe it works better.
Let me take over for George. George had his drone and he had it at 400 feet. And this is looking at downtown Santa Ana and looking at the fireworks and how much was going off. Look at how fast and repeated that it is. So you're looking from the south side of the city to the north side. And as I mentioned, his drone was about 300, 400 feet. He now moves it around so you get a feeling of what Fountain Valley. Well, I don't think we're there yet.
It's really dramatic footage. I don't know how George was able to pull that off, but it's just astounding.
Well, as you're looking towards south from his house in Costa Mesa, you just don't see the same amount. And this is where they're actually getting close to his drone. He actually had to move the drone another 50 feet in the air to avoid the fireworks.
Great footage, George. Thank you. Thank you very much for putting that together. Thank you for sharing it and making it available in this platform. I know that we're having difficulty with your mic, but we wanted to acknowledge that we really appreciate you sharing the video.
And here's a part where he wanted to show both south and east of his location. And you can see Fountain Valley and Costa Mesa not having the same amount as that we had in Santa Ana. All we need is the sound to go along with it.
Okay, very good. Thank you again, George, for that. And Carl, over to you to introduce Administrative Captain Steve Horner with the Orange County Fire Authority.
Okay, as mentioned, I've been introducing Captain Steve Horner. I also want to thank Lisa for her presentation and with the schools. That's very important with the opening. But let me turn it over to Captain Horner to talk about what from the fire department authorities, what they saw on July 4th. Captain? Captain, are you with us?
Let's give Captain Horner a minute to see if he can get his audio on.
While we're doing that, let me remind everyone our next Comlink meeting was going to be on Thursday, August 27th. It will be a virtual meeting just like what we've been having. And so please mark that date down on your calendar.
All right, it appears that Captain Horner needs another minute just to get his device unmuted.
I don't know if George has something he wants to say.
Yeah. Is the microphone working better now?
You're fine now.
Okay, yeah, what I was trying to represent in the video that we had, and I can bring it up again if we need to give Captain Horner some time. What I was trying to represent is you can almost see the border of Santa Ana made out by the fireworks. Now, I did talk to the police department about it, and I got about an hour and a half worth of footage. And what I found is you can actually see the people going out in the street. Give me just 1 second, Captain. You can see the people going out in the street and then running back, and 2 or 3 minutes later, the fireworks goes off and there's no one around. So I can really understand how hard it is for the PD to actually go out and get someone and cite them for it, because there's no one around when it's going off. And that's what I found from the video and the footage. You can basically see the outline of Santa Ana, Tustin, Irvine, Costa Mesa, Newport, and Fountain Valley are pretty much void of fireworks, a very small amount. Santa Ana looks like Disneyland, and that went on pretty close to 3 hours. And I'll close out there. Go ahead, Captain.
Okay, great. Thank you, George, for that. And thank you, members of the Comlink, for allowing me to speak tonight on the report from the fireworks there in the city of Santa Ana from Orange County Fire Authority, our Division 6, Battalion 9. And if you could go to the next slide, please. And basically, we are our mission, we proudly serve the changing needs of our communities by providing exceptional emergency and support services. We pledge a commitment to preserving the quality of life. And you have Chief Jim Henry. He's our fire chief in Santa Ana, and I work directly for him as the administrative captain. And we're proudly serving the citizens of Santa Ana. And I'd like to say that we brought in additional resources for the 4th of July, as it was a very busy time. Next slide, please. All right, so start out with the fireworks booth inspections. We had a total of 62 of the inspections. There were 64. 2 of them, however, did not complete the final process, so they weren't able to open up. They're down approximately 20 from the previous year and years before. There were more than that. Most of these, or if not all of these, are nonprofits that are running the booths. As you know, they open up at 12 noon on July 1st, and they close on the evening of July 4th. There were no major violations for any of the inspections of the booths. However, there were some housekeeping issues that was basically the problem, with a few other minor electrical things. And keep in mind, we've been doing these firework booth inspections for many years, and we've had a lot of the same issues before with just the minor trying to get them opened up and make sure that they're in compliance with the California Fire Code. Next, please. Okay, so our categories and responses, I can break this down into the details so you get an idea of what we dealt with. We did the report from July 1st through July 5th. And the structure fires that we had were 5 of them. And this is anything from a working, fully involved structure fire to a reported something burning at a house structure fire, and we arrive on scene and quickly extinguish. Now with these structure fires, we get 3 fire engines, we get 2 fire trucks, we get a battalion chief and a 2nd battalion chief following up. So with 7 pieces of apparatus, if it goes to what we call a working fire, then that means we're going to send additional resources from there, safety officer and additional engine, additional truck for more resources and manpower. So we had 5 of those. And we had 4 vehicle fires. And in the vehicle fires, we have usually, depending on the location, if they're by themselves, we send 2 engines or an engine and a truck. If it's against a building or underneath a carport, then we would be sending what we call a full assignment. So we had 4 of those vehicle fires. Dumpster fires. Dumpster fires are very common during this time. because there's a belief that if you throw it into the trash can that it would be fairly safe, or discarded material after the fireworks are over or out, they believe they throw it into the dumpster, and later on as it smolders, this material doesn't go out right away, and therefore we had 10 of those fire responses. Now the dumpster fires, depending on the locations, we would send one engine company, and if it was bumping up against a building or sort, we're going to send another engine company or truck company. We had 6 tree fires, and these are confirmed tree fires where we actually have reports that visibly seen the tree is on fire, and we're responding a unit, one fire engine or a truck company to that. And when I say truck company, they also have a fire pump on there as well. We had 5 bush fires, and these are fireworks that are on the ground, or when turned, they tend to project, and a lot of the dry brush and debris will catch fire. And so we had 5 of those responses. Then lastly is the trash fires, in which we had 6 of those. And a lot of the debris that is around, when you open a lot of the fireworks and you light them, there tends to be either trash or debris around, or it's affecting the trash or debris that's around the surrounding area. So I'll go through the days of July 1st. We did not have any, there was no fireworks related responses. We did not respond on any fireworks calls. July 2nd, the same thing. No indications of a 911 call reporting fireworks related type fire or response for the fire department. On July 3rd, we had 1 fireworks related response. And on July 4th is when, as you know, is the day that very busy. We had 32 of the fireworks related responses. And then on July 5th, the day after, we had 3 fireworks related responses. And then what you don't see on here as well is we had 3 fireworks related medical incidents that occurred. One of them was an eye injury and was transported to the hospital. 2 others were hand-related medical aids. One of them was a illegal firework that had been handed off, and the individual had it went off in his hand, and he did suffer a major hand injury. So, and then the other one was another hand injury, but it was not major. It was minor at best. So with that information, these are all responses to any of the activity that went on in the city of Santa Ana from the Orange County Fire Authority. So we can say that it was responding to the safe and sane fireworks, as well as all the non-safe and sane fireworks. Next. So with that, I know there's no time for any questions. However, we did have at least some inquiries, and I did want to comment on Mr. Collins' video, that it was very impressive to be able to see the amount of activity, as well as what was described from a lot of the fire responses that were out there, that there was a lot of activity that was going on. So with that, I thank you for allowing me to present. And I don't know, Scott, if we have any time at all, but
yes. Thank you, Captain Horner. Thank you, Captain Horner. Thank you so much. We do have a copy of your presentation available in the handouts tab. for the virtual platform. And we do have George Collins and Terry McCall, our Comlink board members, who are our point persons tonight on questions. And we want to check in with them to see if we've received any questions for Captain Horner on the fireworks topic. George?
Yes, it looks like we have a singular question here from Vladimir Goran again. To your knowledge, what is the percentage of illegal fireworks compared to legal fireworks? And the second question that I'm asking, when the FD comes out and you decide that it is an illegal firework, what action is taken at that point? And I'll close my mic from there.
Captain Horner, were you able to hear George's questions? It looks like we'd lost Captain Horner's audio. Let's try and get that restored. Hold on one second, George. What I'd like to suggest, just while we give Captain Horner a minute to sort of get his audio working again, we did receive an education. I don't mean to jump back and forth between topics, but we did receive an education related question. And let's see if we can unmute Captain Horner. Captain Horner, are you? Oh, yes. Excellent. Okay. Were you able to hear George Collins's question that came in regarding?
It was broken up a little bit. I did hear him say something about illegal fireworks, but I did not hear the second part of that. I'm sorry, George. I did not hear that.
Okay. Terry, I don't know if Terry McCall, if your audio is better than George's, perhaps you could read the question, or George, you want to try again?
Yeah, I can go ahead and try again. Am I coming through okay now?
There's a lot of static interference. We can hear you, but there's a lot of static.
Okay. I will try to talk slow. The questions are about incidents compared to last year from Kara. From Vladimir, it was, to your knowledge, what is the percentage of illegal fireworks to legal ones? And a question from me is, when you go to a site and it's clear there's an illegal firework that has been discharged, are there any citations or notifications to the PD? And if that wasn't clear, if somebody would repeat it for me, I'd appreciate it.
So
Thank you.
Yeah, I heard you, George, on that, and it's hard to say. To answer the question directly, the investigators will have to calculate and track what the actual amount of illegal fireworks were purchased. Somehow there is a way of being able to find out that information. Difference between last year and this year as far as incidents goes was fairly the same. They're fairly the same. The response was we only had one injury last year versus 3 injuries this year. As far as businesses go, when it comes to violations, that is the police department that handles those problems. The fire department, we are called out to assist with any type of fire or medical emergency. And I want to make that clear that we don't make policy about the fireworks or the responses. We work in conjunction with Santa Ana Police Department on enforcement and work as a team together for fireworks. However, we don't have that information available yet as far as how many or how much of the illegal fireworks or the non-safe and sane came into the city. I'm not sure if there's an exact way to track that, but I did hear some conversations about the interest of finding out. Because with 62 booths, how much was actually sold or how much was used, we're 20 booths down from before, so it's hard to say how much was actually used. So we can track the safe and sane in that, but we don't unless we're asked. We can go find out the sales. We can find out what it was overall. However, when it comes to the non-safe and sane, it's anybody's guess because it comes in all different ways.
Thank you, Captain Horner. I think that Terry may have an additional question to share for you,
Okay.
Captain Horner, regarding illegal fireworks that came in from Carla, I think.
Okay, Terry.
Was there an increase or decrease in the incidents compared to last year?
It was about the same. It was about the same. There was a slight increase, but not by much, just a few.
Okay, very good. George and Terry, do we have any other questions for Captain Horner at this point? No, we're good. Okay, so Captain Horner, thank you very much. To the extent that we do get any late questions, we'll double back with you and the Comlink board to make sure that we're able to provide a response to the residents. Okay. We're very appreciative of your presentation and working with you throughout the year. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for allowing me to present this evening. Have a wonderful evening.
Before we have you go, we're going to double check with our the Spanish call-in line, Narcy and Margarita, just to double check whether there are any Spanish language calls that came in. I think as of 8:10 there weren't, but let's just double check. Yeah, Narcy indicates that we didn't receive any additional Spanish language calls, so we're done with this fireworks topic. Captain Horner, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emma. My numbers, so if anybody would like to call me, it's on there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, we did receive a late question that came in regarding education from Vladimir. And so fortunately, Lisa Solomon is available to respond to that. And so I'd like to pass it over to Terry and George, perhaps to summarize that question for Lisa.
Yes, I'm available.
Thank you. George and Terry, you're good to go with the question?
I can go ahead and take it here. I've got it up on the screen from Vladimir, and it states, I think his concept is, are you going to implement more teachers for the remote teaching, and how are you going to do that? Just because one teacher obviously can't do 30 students remotely. And how are you going to break the class sizes up for remote teaching and discipline that out to individual teachers? I think that's summarizing it reasonably well.
Thank you. George and Vladimir, each teacher is going to have their class list just like they've always had, and they're going to have portions of the day when they are going to be teaching their whole class, and then they're going to have portions of the day when they're going to be working with small groups and individualizing the learning for the students. As of right now, we're going to be using the teachers that we do have. It's not that necessarily we're going to have more teachers. If additional support is needed, it's something that the district will look into, but we've looked at how we can work the schedule to be able to better meet individuals or smaller groups of students' needs. Okay?
Lisa, this is George. On what you said, and I think I would speak for Vladimir here because it's a question that came to me. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have teachers teach individually of their class. And if I'm remembering, when I went to school 7 or 8 years ago, there were 6 or 7 classes a day. So they'll be teaching, the teacher will be teaching in that class, and then later in the day breaking up individually with students. Is that how I'm to understand it? Can you go a little more into that?
Yeah, and I wish I could go more into schedules with you, but right now they're finalizing all the schedules and what it's going to look like for both remote learning and what it would look like in that hybrid model for when we do open up. But they're really working on the remote learning schedules. They have teachers involved in the process, curriculum specialists, and we're hoping that by next week we'll have a clear picture of what each of the schedules will look like, because we do have to make sure that we're collaborating together, that if a student has special needs, that a special needs teacher is working with the general ed teacher to make sure that they don't have conflicting time schedules and things like that. So that's what they're currently working on, is making sure that we are looking at and respecting certain times and making sure that students will have access to all of their teachers. And on one of the slides, it talked about building relationships with the students, but other things that teachers are going to be offering are going to be individual office hours, where they're going to have office hours where students will be able to come for additional support as well as making sure that they're checking the students' work and also informing the parents of the students' progress and if the work is getting completed, and letting the parents know too what those expectations are. So they are going to be breaking them up into smaller chunks of time. That's the schedule that, the sample schedule that has been shown to us, George, for elementary. And, but I'm going to tell you, they're still finalizing it. So they've been working on it because they do want to have the best plan. And I'm going to tell you something that Santa Ana has done is been very thoughtful. Like, we're not going to rush to a decision. We want to make the right decisions for kids. So yeah, the planning has taken longer than we expected, but it's better that we really think through what are the best learning scenarios and what are the best environments and how can we provide that for our students.
So Lisa, I think we opened up the mic for Vladimir. Vladimir, I don't know if you're still on the line, but did you have a follow-up question, Vladimir, for Lisa? Perhaps not. Okay, very good. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Yes,
you very
George.
much. Yeah, we're
Sometimes it's where the mic
still
is.
having difficulty with George Collins's audio, unfortunately. George, we can come back to you if we can get that working again. What I'd like to do is double check that we don't have any additional questions that came in over the Spanish language line. And if not, I would like to pass it back to Peter Katz, the president of Comlink, for any closing comments for tonight's meeting. And Peter, you're self-muted right now, so you need to turn your mic on. Okay, Peter, I think you're good to go.
Okay. I just have one last very important announcement to let people know. If your driver's license is expiring this year, please do not go down to the DMV. You will be receiving a notice from the DMV automatically extending your driver's license for 1 year if you're age 70 and above. So please do not take the time to go down there. They are backlogged all the way into next year on giving driver's tests and renewing driver's licenses. So for those that are 70 and above, the driver's license will be extended by mail for 1 year. That's all, Scott.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. For those who, Carl, do you have anything in closing that you wanted to share? Let me turn on your mic, Carl. There you go.
Yes, I just like to thank everybody for joining us and remind them again that we'll be meeting again on August 27th. And so you'll see the flyers on that date for Thursday, August 27th. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and good night to everyone.
Right.